I had read that 90% of visual, of just people and, space patrols and all these other people that work for the government are saying, hey, 90% of what people see think is UFO is ultimately explainable by something. Could be a balloon, could be whatever. And you're saying 97% of the items people think they see, there's just 3% that needs this investigation and research. So we're on the same path there, that the majority of what people see is natural, but there's this little subset out there. And of that subset, and so I want your opinion on, there are 5 observables that everybody seems to agree with that are confusing to us. 1, anti-gravity activity. 2, sudden and instantaneous propulsion. 3, hypersonic without heat, vapor, or sonic booms, right? So there's no natural physics occurring with the hypersonic speed. Low observability. The closer we get to it, we don't get to see it because it maneuvers away or something. Pilots are saying that. And then finally, transmedium, that it dives into the ocean or it's even dived into Earth without any visible disruption. It just moves mediums. What do you think about that part of it? Because I understand, hey, these particles, I'll call them metals, the dark matter, these metals, you want to know what they are. They could be a spaceship, they could be whatever, but please don't call them rocks because I think it's something else. That's your first point. What do you think about the second part?
Right.
With these observables, like of what they saw in Hawaii?
Well, 2 things. When you consider objects flying in between stars, there are 2 types of objects. One would be space trash, just like plastics collecting in the ocean.
Sure, and that's what was there. It was confirmed that it was part of a booster from a rocket that had launched decades ago, going around in space, but even and finally came back down.
Even Voyager will become space trash because it will exit the solar system in 10,000 years. Okay, that's the time it will take it to leave the Oort cloud, which is at the periphery, the outskirts of the solar system. So in 10,000 years, Voyager will not be functional anymore. It will be trash. We pollute interstellar space with trash. And other civilizations could have done that for billions of years. The point is, these objects that are the trash, the plastics in the ocean of space, they keep collecting over time because they are bound by gravity to the Milky Way. They cannot escape. They move too slowly. So they keep accumulating, and you might find some of this trash in your backyard. These will not be functional devices. They will collide with Earth and burn up as a meteor. Okay, so that's one type of object.
No,
However, the anomalous.
What I'm asking about is...
I know. So now I'm getting to your point. There is another class of objects which is functional. Okay, that at least according to military personnel, they see objects that they can't figure out, which are moving in strange ways, the way you described it, going into water, coming into... These are of a different type. These were, if they originated from outside of this Earth, they must have traveled the distance and arrived here. Now, why would they go underwater? One simple example is water could be fuel. It could be the nutrient of a technological gadget, because if you break, for example, the water molecule into oxygen and hydrogen, both oxygen and hydrogen can be used as fuel. Okay, so that could be one reason. But of course, what we can imagine is based on our knowledge of science right now. These may represent things that we don't fully understand. As I said before, it would be awe-inspiring for us to figure it out, what these technologies mean. But the first thing to do is really simple. We don't need to guess what it is. What we need to do is verify that what we are looking at is not familiar objects. It's not birds. It's not drones. It's not balloons.
Yeah,
it's
this
not
is
airplanes.
the 3% you're talking about.
Yeah,
the 3%.
But but the 3% is not known. It's unidentified. What I'm saying is, let's identify. Let's get more data. Let's get more data on it, such that we can clearly see that it's a technological object that has screws and bolts and maybe even has a label made on exoplanet Y, and it has buttons on it. Clearly technological, not a bird, not a balloon, and moreover, it maneuvers in ways that our technologies cannot reproduce. Let's verify that. Now, the government says, we have data to that effect. That's why the Congress is discussing it. I haven't seen that data because it's classified. That's what we were discussing with Patrick. And my point is, it should be made available to scientists like myself so we can make sense of it. I think there should be a partnership between scientists and government on this issue. And I strongly advocate for the government to share whatever information they have, because it's not a matter of national security. If you can verify that it's not Chinese or Russian, maybe they have that data. It's not publicly available for me to look at. I really want it. But if the government decides to keep hiding it, I have a plan B, which is to collect the data myself. So your questions are excellent, but I think at first just need to make sure that these objects are not familiar, that they have a nature that is completely beyond what we know here on Earth. They might be packages that arrive to our doorstep from a sender. If we read the postal address of the sender, we will realize that it's actually from beyond the solar system.
So, okay, you're an author, you're a deep thinker, you're a professor. What do you suspect of those observables? Because I didn't make this list of observables up. This is the list that everybody looks at when they talk about what pilots that are not intoxicated, you're talking about people that are credible witnesses, pilots, commercial pilots, people like this, scientists on Earth. Of that 3%, when you see these things, what do you suspect today? Because if I ask you what you know, you're going to tell me, take me down the same path you just did there, which I respect, because it's a path of scientific suspicion, scientific hypothesis, H1, HO, and you got to get there and figure out where you are. I get it. What do you suspect about the things that seem to defy earthly physics?
Well, it doesn't defy because it's all based on people telling you something. If I had the data, the raw data that substantiates all of these claims, I could tell you what it means. But some people...
Well, you have some data. You've got tracking that was done by aircraft,
there is no convincing data that I'm aware of that beyond any reasonable doubt shows that it's something beyond of this Earth about unidentified anomalous phenomena. And moreover, the data that is available was collected by cameras that were in cockpits, that were jittery. We don't have full control over the instruments that collected that data. What I want is high quality data. And if the government has it, perhaps they have it from satellites. As the former director of national intelligence hinted, Ratcliffe, he said that there is satellite data. We haven't seen it. It's possible that such data exists because the head of NASA, Bill Nelson, said publicly on CNN a couple of years ago, he said that the hair in the back of his neck stood up when, as a senator, he saw this data. I don't know how frequently the hair in the back of Bill Nelson's neck stands up. I don't know that because he's not a friend of mine. But that's a very interesting statement. It means scientists should engage. And that's what Bill Nelson wanted. And a day after he said that, I wrote to NASA and said that I'm happy to make their boss happy. I'm happy to help them. I sent a white paper. They established a study as a result of that white paper. They've never come back to me. In the meantime, I established the Galileo Project because I don't have the patience for government, the bureaucracy of government, to resolve this matter. As a kid, you want to figure out the answer yourself, not to rely on the adults in the room. That's the most devastating experience I had as a kid.
What was the question, though? What as a kid, what question, like, this whole journey started with wanting to know what? Like, did you want to know if aliens existed?
No. I was interested in philosophical questions. I was interested in even simple questions. And when I raised it at the dinner table, the adults in the room, when I was a kid, would pretend that they know much more, or if they didn't know, they would dismiss the question. So I said to myself, that's very frustrating. They're fooling me. I want to figure it out myself, and the best way to figure it out is through science, okay? But what I realize now, when I'm 61 years old, after decades of scientific work, that the experience is very similar with scientists, with colleagues who have a prejudice, think they know the answer in advance, are not seeking the evidence to guide them, and resist change. That's the worst because it basically diminishes innovation. Science is all about innovation, new knowledge, and you should be intrigued, you should be curious about that. Instead, what you see is people worrying about their stature, showing off as if they are
Seems
smarter.
to be a trend with scientists. it seems to be a trend with scientists fearing being wrong and eventually
Yes.
feeling like they're God.
Exactly.
Is that common? Like they think they're God or they want to be God?
They want to look like it. So I'll give you an example.
I know a couple guys, like a guy named Tony. I don't know if you know who he is, but go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, thank goodness it
but
didn't
keep
happen
going.
during COVID.
Go ahead. You were saying so.
Yeah, so when I went to the expedition, I wrote 43 diary reports
Yeah.
on medium.com. And they received instantly millions of readers. They were translated to Spanish. When I came back from the expedition, my colleagues, many of them, basically pushed back and said, how dare you write about the scientific project before you published a scientific paper with your results? And I said, well, look, the reason that the public thinks about science as an occupation of the elite is because it's a self-inflicted wound. The scientists say, we need to tell the public what the answer is in press conferences. After we know it for sure, we will never expose the uncertainties, the mistakes we make along the way. But I say, let's show the public that doing science is like a detective story. You know, you don't know the answer, you make mistakes. But once the evidence is clear enough, the public believes you because the public loves detective stories. And by the way, I had emails from fans during the expedition saying one of them had a stroke a few weeks earlier, said, watching the scientific process, the way you describe it while making mistakes, trying to figure it out, gave me a meaning to my life. And, you know, that's very moving. I connect to the public because I don't regard myself as any different than the public. You know, I had a plumber come to my home to fix the sewer. We had it clogged. And I went with a plumber to the basement. And I realized, I never thought about the fact that the water in my home goes to some place outside the home. And we figured out it's basically tree roots that clog it. And that gave me an insight about black holes. I then thought, okay, where is the matter that goes into a black hole? Where does it go? If it's clogged near the center, the matter will collect there and get to very high density, but eventually make an object there. You know, that's a possibility. We don't know what happens to it. It may also go to another universe. But I came to think about it because my sewer was clogged and I spent hours with a plumber. To me, hours with a plumber are not less valuable than hours with my colleagues. I don't see myself as any different than any other person. I just want to figure out the reality that we live in. Why? Because we need to adapt to it. If we are not at the center of the universe and we want to send rockets to Mars, you know, we need to know that.
So I just figured you out. So as a kid, your dream was to be a plumber. That's what it is. And is that like the feeling you're also getting, Rob?
I had plan B.
Yeah. If it didn't work out, you're going to be a plumber?
No, I went to Harvard as a junior faculty, and it was not clear at all that I will get tenure because the previous person who got tenure from within, that happened 15 years earlier. So I had no concerns about it because I had plan B of going back to the farm. That was really...
If it didn't work out for you.
If it doesn't... I don't see science or academia as superior in any way to working on the farm.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm curious, so I think science can help me figure out things.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.